Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and we're back with another Central Virginia fishing report with Ethan Martin at TaleTellers Fly Shop. How you doing, Ethan?
I'm doing great today. How are you doing?
As always, just trying to stay out of trouble. Was Santa Claus good to you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got all sorts of little tools and fun stuff for fishing, so I can't complain.
Yeah, well, there you go. And, looking at your weather, we're kind of at the tail end of a little bit of a warm-up after the holiday deep freeze, and it looks like things are going to kind of slide back into a normal pattern. Probably have a decent amount of water. What are you seeing on the trout and the muskie front?
Yeah, most guys that have been going out trout fishing have had pretty good success on both the brook trout streams and also stocked rivers. So pretty much whatever you want to do, if it's trout oriented, it's a decent time of the year to go do that. The only thing to keep in mind is it is cold, and a lot of our brook trout streams right now actually can get snow or ice up there. So just keep that in mind. If you're going up there with a real crummy car, it might be no good. But on those warm days, we've had quite a few of them going up there, and dry fly action's even been going off with darker colored dry flies. So if that's something that you're into and want to go and catch some fish on a dry fly, look for those, warmer days. If there's 3 or 4 days stacked in a row, it's usually going to be that third or fourth day. But this time of the year, we're usually fishing darker colored dry flies, like a parachute Adams, or maybe even like a black bionic ant, something like that. And then a nymph. And again, most of those fish are going to be eating the nymph. But if you're going to say, hey, let's just swing for the fences and see if maybe we can get something to eat on top, then that's how I'd throw, is a dry dropper with a pattern on the bottom and then a darker colored dry fly on the top. Because, as crazy as it is, even last week down here in Lynchburg, I saw, some giant ants walking around. So it's not like there's no bug activity that's happening. You still do get the odd terrestrial. So just keep that in mind. And then when it comes to the stock trout waters, bright and flashy, that's been the ticket. I know a couple people went out on some of our like medium-sized stock streams near us and brought like acrylex flies and caught fish. Woolly buggers have been doing well. And then egg squirmies, your classic, what we would call junk flies, have been catching fish. But the main thing is that thing has to be on the bottom of the river. If it's off it even a little bit, they just don't seem to be as productive. So if you do go up there this time of the year, make sure that you bring 2 things. One of them is gloves, and the other one would be split shot, because you're going to have to be fishing low and slow.
Yeah. And to that point, the trick, folks, is, if you're indicator fishing, is to make sure that that indicator is moving slower than the bubbles on the top of the water.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's something that I always, I use the indicator for more than just, watching for strikes. And so that's something to keep in mind, in that the strike indicator, when you use it properly, is going to give you a lot more information than just, hey, it goes under the water when a fish eats it. Because just like you said, if it's going slower, then you know that your drift is more lifelike underneath the water. Depending on what indicator system you're using, like I end up using the New Zealand strike indicator system a lot. And the benefit of that is you can even tell when it will sit sideways, and as soon as you get a direct line of contact to your nymph, the thing will actually sit straight up in the air. Or you can watch it twitch just a little bit, where it's like bumping rocks and stuff like that. So it definitely, if you go out, one of the things people don't do, especially beginners, is they set that indicator and then forget about it. But if you watch a good angler, then they're usually adjusting weight, or either weight or the length of their indicator, because you're always kind of constantly tweaking stuff as you move up a stream, because the stream changes and the stream flow changes, the depth changes. And again, your objective is you want that fly to be on the bottom of the river. And so you do everything you can to make that happen. But another product that I've liked, honestly, is those new Oros indicators. I know that people have probably seen them if they've been in our shop, but it's like a thingamabobber. But for a beginner, like a kid, they're pretty cool, because it just slides right in the middle. And it's kind of like an airlock, but if you drop it, because that's the notorious thing with those air locks. If you drop that washer, it's gone. You might as well throw it away. But it's a cool product. The only thing I'd say about it is, if it's not like 4X tippet, the thing can slide around a little bit. But if you see that in your local shop, worth picking up one or two, because if you are teaching a newbie how to fish, or if you do have to use a lot of weight, they cast really well and they adjust really easily. And in the cold weather, it's kind of nice to have, something that's big and bulbous that you can kind of grab onto when you can't really feel your fingers. So something else to keep your eyes out for.
Yeah, I would also say too, not to be lazy about changing weight, to your point. And one way, one of the things I try to do is I try to put on the smallest split shot at the beginning of the day that I think I'm going to need all day long. And then basically add and take off tungsten putty around that piece of split shot to kind of vary my depth. And that seems to, one, not make me, take split shot on and off my leader, which is not good during the course of a day. But it also, if it's easier to adjust your weight, you'll adjust your weight more.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really think in watching other people fish and fishing myself, it's really interesting how important depth is for nymphs or even streamers. Because there was a day like in December, I went and fished, and there's one run where there's always a fish there. Like, I know every time I fish there, there's a trout sitting there. And I made like 2 drifts through, didn't catch anything. So I made my indicator a little bit farther away, cast 2 drifts through, didn't catch anything. And I know there's a fish there because I've fished this place 1,000 times. So then I put on a little bit of split shot and then first cast through and caught him. And it's like, if you didn't know anything, or if you were just, kept it at that one single distance, you wouldn't have landed the fish. But just because you're willing to kind of tweak stuff around a little bit, you'll land more. So just one more tool or thing to think about. And I guess that is a hard part. If like somebody's a beginner, they would ask the question, well, how did you know that there was a fish there? And my answer would have been, I've caught a bunch of fish there before. So really, again, it goes back to, you just put time on the water and, pay your dues and adjust and tweak things, and eventually stuff will start to unveil itself to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think too, another thing, people kind of hear that 1.5 times the depths of the water rule, right? For, distance between indicator and shot. And I think, it's probably more important to kind of think about that in terms of how fast the water is moving, right? So the faster the water is moving, the closer it is to 1.5 times. But if the water is really slow, like it can be in the wintertime, it's probably closer to 1, right?
Yep.
And, that's the trick. And, just start kind of, again, it's hard to kind of develop that feel as a beginner, but you just got to go fish, just to basically look and watch that indicator. And it's going to tell you a lot, about where your flies are in the water, but also kind of if you're down, right? And that's kind of the game, right?
Yeah. And there was a funny thing. I was talking to a guy in the shop today, and everywhere you read online or watch online about nymphs, you always see people using 2 nymphs. And the question arose, is it okay just to use 1? And absolutely, obviously. Like in fishing, there's no hard, fast rules, right? But it is funny how like all the literature, all the illustrations, everything you see about nymph fishing, they always have an anchor or deep, big fly, and then there's one hanging off of it. But, there are times, especially if you're fishing brook trout streams, where if you just go with 1 nymph with a really precise cast, you have better success. I mean, it's kind of funny, right? Because it seems like counterintuitive, but it all boils back to a precision in fly casting and being able to place them in the water where the fish are. And sometimes having 2 flies on is just more annoying, frankly, because especially if you're on like a brook trout stream trying to nymph and you have to make 1 or 2 false casts, I mean, before you know it, you've botched up the 2 flies, they're all twisted, and now you're going to spend 10 minutes trying to untangle a mess with numb fingers. So keep that in mind too. It's just another thing for, especially people that are newer to fly fishing. If you see all the books and all the things that are like, you must use 2 flies, you don't have to do that. I mean, that's, it's funny how those things, when it's ingrained in your head so often, you kind of forget that you can do whatever the heck you want.
Yeah, some things are better than other, but yeah, absolutely. And particularly in the wintertime. I mean, if it was spring or fall or summer and the fish were more active and you're trying to fish different places in the water column, totally different ball game. Yep. But we know where they are in the wintertime, and they're not up on the top.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah. A guy sent me a picture just today of like an absolutely stunning looking rainbow at one of our local streams here. And it's like, you go, you nymph, and he said he only caught 1 fish, but that fish was a beautiful trout. And it's one of those things, like, you might not go out there this time of year and catch a million, but it's definitely rewarding and something to get you out of the house. So I'd go and fish if you have the chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And folks, we love questions on the articulate fly. You can email them to us. You can DM us on social media. And if we use your question, I will send you some articulate fly swag. And we are in a drawing for something cool from the shop at the end of the season. And speaking of that, we're at the end of the season, and we're going to have the drawing for all the folks in 2022 that asked questions and had them answered on the fishing report. And Ethan, what are we going to raffle off next time?
We're going to raffle off a $100 gift card to the shop that can be used in the store or online. And we're also going to raffle off one article of TaleTellers apparel. So if that's a hat or shirt or sweatshirt, whatever you want, it's yours.
Well, there you go. And I bet you've got all kinds of cool class stuff coming up, right?
We do. Yeah, we had a class last Saturday with Mike Rennie. So we're going to have a class coming up here in February. And as well, we even have like fly tying classes and fly fishing 101s. So if you're interested in that information, it's on our website. You just click on the calendar tab, and then it's going to show you all of the dates, who's going to be speaking, how much some of it costs, because some of the classes are $20 if it's a master class. But if it's one that we're putting on as a shop, like a fly fishing 101 or a tying class, they are free. So it's definitely something, if you're newer to the whole fly fishing world, it's worth checking out. Those aren't like live streamed or put anywhere else. It is in the classroom class. So definitely, it's a lot of fun. You get to see other people who are newer to fly fishing, and then you can come say hi to me. So it's best of both worlds.
Yeah, and you can grab a cheesy Western.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, all the good food options in downtown.
Yeah, and so you want to let folks know shop hours and all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah, so we have a change in hours just for winter. So we're going to be closed Sundays and Mondays, but then we're open Tuesday through Saturday like normal. So if you are headed this way, just keep that in mind that Mondays we are closed because we got to fish too. So
yeah, there you go. Very, very important. And folks, speaking of fishing, you owe it to yourself to get out there and catch a few. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Ethan.
Tight lines.